The mind is basically what determines our reality and our experience of life. So when we go through things, everything goes into the subconscious mind, good and bad experiences, not necessarily from childhood. It could be experiences that you have. And, if you don't process or navigate the things you've been through, they just sit there and they wait for you. But what happens is you then tend to project those things into how you react, how to act, when you behave, the things you say, and how you relate with people. So the more we try to avoid, repress, ignore what is happening, it doesn't mean it's not impacting us. And I think nowadays we are becoming more and more aware, or we're talking more and more about the importance of mental health, because that actually will determine whether you thrive or not in this life.
Speak to when we are going through specific things and feel as if there's no space to go through certain emotions. What causes this is the patriarchal views that are continuously reinforced by the same men, such as things like men don't cry or be a man. And the same men go on to complain about how men's mental health isn't taken seriously, when they themselves don't even take it seriously.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Africa Written podcast. I'm your host, Nontobeko Mlambo, and today we are tackling an incredibly important topic, mental health among African men. So across the continent, discussions around mental health are growing. But for many African men, societal expectations, stigma, and systematic barriers make it difficult to seek the help that they need. So today, we are breaking the silence and exploring what mental health means for African men, the challenges they face, and the path towards better support and understanding. Later on, we'll hear from some men I spoke to what mental health means to them. On this week's episode, we spoke to Dr. Keitumentsi Tumi Mashego, the founder of Ribaoni Wellness. She's a clinical and sports psychologist. She's also an author, speaker, mindset, performance, and life coach based in South Africa. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Tumi, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Can you just please tell us about your journey into psychology and what inspired you to pursue this field?
I've been working since 2006. It has been a very significantly long journey to qualify, but also it's my passion, it's my calling. So I started off actually doing BSc in optometry. So I was going to be an optometrist. And in my first year of optometry, that's when I actually made a decision to do psychology, BSc in psychology and human physiology, because I felt I wanted a closer relationship with my client, meaning, a more intimate type of relationship where we're talking about deep issues. And also my mom is a professor in clinical psychology, but she always tells me, I must tell people, she did not force me to do it. It was my decision to take out it was my decision that I made to become a clinical and sports psychologist.
So when I was doing my research, I realized that mental health is so broad, and so it can get confusing to people that are not familiar with the terminology. How would you define mental health, and why is it important that we address it, as part of an overall well-being?
Mental health is about general wellness, but pertaining specifically to your mind. And I think we don't actually dive into details to explain what the mind is. The mind is basically what determines our reality and our experience of life. So when we go through things, everything goes into the subconscious mind, good and bad experiences, not necessarily from childhood. It could be experiences that you have. And, if you don't process or navigate the things you've been through, they just sit there and they wait for you. But what happens is you then tend to project those things into how you react, how to act, when you behave, the things you say, and how you relate with people. So the more we try to avoid, repress, ignore what is happening, it doesn't mean it's not impacting us. And I think nowadays we are becoming more and more aware, or we're talking more and more about the importance of mental health, because that actually will determine whether you thrive or not in this life. We focus a lot on physical appearance, how we look, what we eat, and exercise, but we forget the one thing that can carry us when it's really bad, because the mind will carry you when your body does not want to function, right? That's why you keep completing things like comrades. The mind that carries them. At some point, you hit a wall, and so the mind is quite powerful. And if it's not healthy, then it will manifest itself in a lot of pathologies that we see out there. We functioning from a place of pain or as wounded souls because of what's happened that we haven't healed.
In your practice, then, what are the most common mental health issues that you've seen?
Sure, I see a lot of depression. I see a lot of anxiety issues. And remember, with things like depression and anxiety, that's just an umbrella. So
Yeah.
within depression, there's various types of depression, and it runs on a continuum. In that, you get people with mild symptoms and some with severe clinical depression who need admission. But yes, I've seen a lot of depression, anxiety, a lot of perfectionism, where people are unable to function because of that. And it can lead to burnout. It can lead to, a sense of hopelessness and helplessness in the workspace, but also in the private space. And also the couples I see a lot of couples nowadays who are, going against the societal expectation of just sweeping things under the rug sometimes, and actually doing the work because they want to have great, good relationships, functional relationships. And nowadays, we're also seeing a lot of self-medication. People are not coping with stress or anxiety or life in general. So they tend to then turn to, maladjusted coping strategies. So I see some of that as well, and toxic workplaces. And also with children, we are nowadays more open to dealing with things like your ADHD and other developmental disorders that, we are aimed to have inclusive schools environment, but also interventions for them as well.
Yeah, you speak of sweeping things under the rug. In our societies, once a person is, usually in our Black societies, once a person is diagnosed with a mental illness, we just label that person as so and so is crazy, and it's known that that one is crazy. In your experience as a clinical psychologist, what are some of the most misconceptions about mental health that you have encountered?
People are of view that mental health illnesses, one must be able to snap out of it, right? So it's almost like, I can't have this. I don't want this. So there's a lot of stigma, but it's not just social or societal stigma. It's also self-stigma. People judge themselves for being unable to snap out of things or struggling with mental health issues. So there's still a lot of work to be done to ensure that people see that sometimes you're predisposed to mental health issues the same way someone is predisposed to diabetes. On the outside, they might, look like someone who, is healthy, but they might be predisposed to cancer or whatever physical illness. But it's the same for mental health issues. But we people are not willing to accept that for themselves, for other people. Hence, then people are labeled as weak, as crazy, as having lost the plot. And yet, if your mind is not functional, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're likely not to thrive. And if you're not thriving, you're likely not to be okay in the other aspects of your life. So it needs to be this holistic approach to the human being, because we're all human beings. We will come across stress sometimes, and we are flawed. But really, is that the journey to understand self, to be self-aware, to understand your blind spots, and to be okay to give yourself grace and to do the work that is needed to make sure healing happens.
Yeah. You say we're all human beings, and at some point we'll, encounter stress and all of that. But we keep hearing that men don't cry, and they should toughen up throughout everything that they enjoy, and they should just enjoy. And never show tears. Why is it this way? And what have you seen to be some of these unhealthy, maybe coping mechanisms for men who just sweep things under the rug?
Sadly, societal or cultural expectations is exactly that in
Mm,
most cases where men, it's one of the stereotypes that is put out there or enforced upon the
mm,
men of this world, or even boys, from a young age, that they shouldn't cry, they must be strong. Crying is a sign of weakness. Feelings are not a part of us. And yet the sad part is all human beings have emotions, right? And when you're not acknowledging them, they don't necessarily vanish. So men
mm,
also have emotions. They do go through that, but unfortunately, they are not given the spaces that other genders are given, like women, to actually explore their feelings, to talk about their feelings, and navigate their feelings, so that they can overcome in a healthy manner. So then you find that it becomes that they project their wounds onto people who did not wound them. They
mm,
tend to bleed on people who did not cause the bleeding, which is
mm,
sad. And like that for everyone, but specifically for men. And
mm,
sad that they are the high risk for suicide attempts.
mm,
They tend to, have the aggression because of whatever's going on within them, and
yeah.
they don't feel safe to talk to people, which is very sad because that is how the help will come, when you actually do the work. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest stigmas and stereotypes that we still need to overcome. That men are human beings as well. They need help. They need to heal so they can be the heroes of the upcoming men. So they can be the mentors of the upcoming men, and be okay with talking about feelings and overcoming them, and seeing it as vulnerability is a part of life. That's how we
Mm,
should, aim to grow and to become the best versions of ourselves.
yeah. With all these barriers and challenges, it is no surprise to know that the African region has some of the highest suicide rates globally, about 11 deaths per 100,000 people each year, surpassing the global average of 9 per 100,000 people. For African men, untreated mental health issues like depression, anxiety, and substance abuse are major contributing factors. Despite this, though, mental health services in many African countries remain severely underfunded. On average, African countries allocate less than 1% of their healthcare budgets to mental health, leaving millions without access to essential services. But the story doesn't end there. Cultural norms often discourage men from expressing vulnerability, framing emotion struggles as a sign of weakness. This leads to a vicious cycle. Men don't seek help, their conditions worsen, and the stigma deepens. Are there any differences in how mental health manifests itself in African men compared to other groups or races?
I think it's similar, but of course, then it manifests itself in ways where people are self-medicating. I think we see that in
Mm,
different ways. Maybe they self-medicate on different things. Remember, self-medication could be your over-the-counter medication. It could be serious, hardcore drugs. It could be
mm,
alcohol. It could be food. So I think that the generalized view is that, the umbrella view is that men tend to, not necessarily talk, or they are more inclined not to talk about their feelings or to go there,
mm,
but it will come across in how they behave, how they relate. Um, and yes, with the African man, maybe there is more resistance to seeking help.
mm,
It has to really be quite bad for them to come through, or they are forced to come through to see someone like myself. But it's similar in that the aggression might be the irritability, or the poor coping strategies, or just the avoidance of the issue totally. But as I
mm,
said, the issue doesn't go away just because you're avoiding it. Everywhere you go,
mm.
there will be with you wanting your attention, or coming out in ways you don't want it coming out.
Yeah. Sometimes sometimes you go through something and you don't even know what you have is a bigger problem than you think it is. What are the signs that people should look out for, like for them to know that there's a problem and then they need to seek help or
Usually,
seek.
the way usually is withdrawing or doing things that you didn't do before, or struggling to do things that you enjoy. So almost like a change that's happening in your personality or your interests. So it's almost like you're not interested in what you usually are interested in, or you are now so different from what you were before. For example, someone withdrawn might now suddenly be the life of the party, or someone who was the life of the party suddenly now they just don't party at all. So we look at those behaviors, but also things like your appetite. So people are different. Sometimes people's appetite increases, sometimes it decreases, right? So meaning there'll be weight gain, weight loss, and also just the way in which they view the world. So if someone is quite pessimistic about everything and feeling like nothing is working out, just the things they would say, then you can pick up that someone is not doing okay. Also, that self-medication, and as I said, it comes in different forms. Some people drink, some people, it's food. So also that, if that's happening, or even just the over-the-counter medication where you cannot function without a headache tablet. You cannot function. And sometimes it's things like caffeine. So if you're not getting enough rest and now you are constantly cannot function when you're not taking caffeine, it can be a warning that, okay, I need, if it increase from what it was the norm.
You spoke about, times are changing and people are finding means to deal with mental health issues, including self-medication, and as times are changing, we are having more conversations about things that we thought were taboo. Have you found that the conversation around mental health has, over the years, recently changed?
Yes, definitely. It has become, especially COVID, I think also just added another layer where we have to talk about the mental health. That the shared trauma that we have with people who are passing away left, right, and center, the change of life as we knew the norm. So that in itself showed that we're not doing okay. We need to focus on the mind as well. And it's not where it should be, in that I'm still of view that more still needs to be done to ensure that people come and see, professionals, they seek their help, they prioritize themselves, they don't judge themselves for struggling, and accept it the same way we accept your physical illnesses. I think we still have a long way, but yes, definitely there has been a move forward in that regard.
Yeah. As a clinical psychologist, what advice would you give to someone who is feeling hesitant and very nervous about seeking therapy?
That is the best thing that you could do for yourself, right? When you invest in yourself and do the work so that you can be free from whatever it is you're carrying. People usually don't want to go there because they feel like if I open the box, it's going to be a can of worms. I'm going to be unable to handle it. But usually when you are ready to go there, it means you have the capacity. Yes, it will be painful, because what happens with pain, if you, for example, something happened to you when you were 3, when you start looking at it now as an adult, the pain feels so raw. It feels like it's just the other day where you were, the 3-year-old. So you cry as if you're the 3-year-old. But the good thing is, when you do that, the scar then heals and it's not infected within, or you're not, bleeding on other people that you shouldn't be bleeding on. Because the more we take care of what's going on within, the more we project it and how we relate. So if something happened to you when you were 3 as an adult, if you haven't processed or navigated that, the 3-year-old shows up in your adult relationships, right? So we really need to understand the power of doing the work within. And that's the biggest gift you can give to yourself. And once you prioritize yourself, then you are able to, you're healing as well. And it doesn't make you narcissistic or proud or egotistic when you start self-preserving, right? Or do the work within. And once you are okay, you're able to be there for your partner. You're able to be there as a parent for those who are parents, to be there for your family and show up in your workspace and also with your friends.
Yeah. So it sounds like individuals are, moving towards finding solutions for their mental health issues. What can governments and healthcare systems do better, to address mental health issues specific to African men?
We need to really destigmatize it, but maybe in a safe environment, as in a less threatening way. So instead of saying go to therapy, we should start having such informal scenarios or situations or call it gatherings where we can talk about what do we actually mean about the power of the mind, so that people understand how the mind works. I feel like when you are empowered to understand how the mind works, you'll be motivated to ensure that you capitalize on it. But now people don't actually understand how the mind works. They think it's just an automatic thing that we have that we don't need to prioritize. But once you understand the power in the mind, how it works, I feel like you'll be empowered to then make sure that whatever it is in there that you're struggling with, that you do the work. But until people start seeing that they need to do the work and understand why, we're always going to have this notion that people must snap out of their struggles mentally. And to understand also that some people are predisposed to it. So I can be predisposed to depression. We go through the same thing. I develop depression and you do not. The same way, physical illnesses. Some people are, no matter what they do, they're predisposed to cancer, diabetes, cholesterol, in spite of them looking healthy on the outside. So we really need to push that message across, that it's not that you're weak or crazy, but really it's because you are predisposed to this thing and there is help. That's why I went to school. That's why other people went to school. That's why we've got psychiatrists, etc., mental health professionals who are trained, by the way, to work on this, because the mind is a thing and it's important.
Yeah. How can people like you and I, mothers, wives, partners, sisters, daughters, better support our loved ones, especially African men who are facing mental health issues, but not just African men? I mean, anyone who has a loved one who's battling mental health, how can we better support them?
The struggle with mental health issues is that one must want the help for them to benefit from the help. One must see that they have a problem for them to benefit from the intervention. So I think that's it becomes so hard in that way. So you do that. That's why with substance abuse we say you need to recognize firstly that you have a problem with alcohol, that's your demon or whatever substance you're struggling with. You don't necessarily have to be sober to come see us, but you need to recognize that this is my problem. So acceptance, is an important step. And acceptance doesn't mean you have all the solutions. It means you're just aware what your problem is. And then you can do the work to make sure you overcome. But as a loved one, I think it's important to just always use I. So when you say to someone, when you're concerned about someone, to say, I am concerned about you. But if you say to that person, you're always sleeping, you're always eating, what's wrong? You're always so down. Like, what's wrong with you? They're going to be defensive and feel attacked. But when you verbalize the concern from your side using I, to say, I'm a bit concerned. I am here for you if you want to chat. I've seen this clinical psychologist or someone went to this one. It seems they benefited. If you want me to accompany you, we can. And, we also have clinics, public setting clinics where clinical psychologists do go. So people need to go to the nearest clinic to just inquire there about the nearest resources available. And really work with people, but also understanding that they must be ready for the help. They must want help. And in some instances, the prognosis is poor, meaning the person might never be helped. There's many factors that can cause that, which is now the person trying to help the family member. They must then do their own work to grieve the person who doesn't exist, even though the person still exists. So it's the only thing you're in charge of is yourself. So even in trying to help someone, you must understand that the only thing I'm in control of is myself and my mind and my reaction. Yes, I can attempt to offer, help to this person, but at the end of the day, they must want it. And if them not getting help triggers me or frustrates me or hurts me, I must do the work to deal with that and make sure I'm okay. So that's self-awareness and doing the internal work. That's what we do. Yeah, but that savior complex, it becomes exhausting. You will burn out.
Yeah. Okay. So the most important thing is that they must be willing to accept the help first. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and expertise today. Do you have any final thoughts or encouragement for our listeners who might be battling mental health issues?
It takes courage to see someone like me, but you will not regret the help once you get to the other side, right? Yeah. It takes courage, but it is possible. And some days will not be the same. Think of healing as an onion. You're always peeling the layers, and we're a work in progress until we pass on. So there's no aim of perfect healed person. It's just to become aware of your triggers so that you're able to be functional and to thrive in this life, to make the best, of your life, and to actually achieve the things you're meant to achieve. Like, just do the work and you will not regret. You will be okay. And it's not easy, but it is possible.
Thank you so much.
Some of the key takeaways from the conversation with Dr. Tumi for me is that mental health is universal, that it can affect anyone regardless of their age, gender, or background, and it is as important as physical health and integral to overall well-being. And that one of the biggest barriers to addressing mental health is stigma, which discourages people from seeking help. So it is important to change societal attitude, which is crucial in fostering an open and supportive environment. Here's what different men said about mental health and what it means to them.
Health mean to me. I think in today's society, we are so pressured to have the answers to everything. Like, you need to articulate things in a way that makes sense to other people. I don't have the answers for other people. All I know is that something is not right. And I have my coping mechanisms to deal with it. And I know that meds are not the way for me. And as much as I have a way to cope, I know that those coping mechanisms are unhealthy and they're potentially dangerous to a certain extent. But right now, we're on survival mode. And what I'm doing is keeping my head above water and surviving. Will I find the answers one day? Yeah, I guess I'm on the journey to find what it means and finding a more sustainable way to deal with it. But right now, we're just surviving, and that's good enough.
I'm Philip from Nigeria. Mental health to me means being in a state of mental well-being that enables a human being cope with the stresses of life, which can be anything from physical to emotional, can be triggered by health crisis or even financial concerns. Mental health means a human being realizes his or her abilities, learn well and work well, and contribute to his or her community.
So, in terms of men's mental health, most feel like they don't have a person to speak to when we are going through specific things and feel as if there's no space to go through certain emotions. What causes this is the patriarchal views that are continuously reinforced by the same men, such as things like men don't cry or be a man. And the same men go on to complain about how men's mental health isn't taken seriously when they themselves don't even take it seriously. So men should rid themselves of those patriarchal views and start creating those safe spaces that would allow other men to be able to speak about their mental health. Yeah.
From Uganda. Mental health is a serious issue, and as a man, I take it seriously because in most cases you're told men don't cry, men are supposed to be strong, men are supposed to be lifting others, and yet in reality many men are going through various issues in lives. They have to feed their family, they have to fend for their family, they have to look for fees, they have to look for food, because even society has conditioned them that way, that a real man is he who is able to fend for their family. So then that comes and brings in the issue of stress, and most men have stress. So as a man, mental health is important. Why? That I need to de-stress. Obviously there is stress, so I need to find something, and I need someone who I can talk to about issues, because stress is real. depression is real. So it is true that also as men, as a man, I am an emotional being. So I need to ensure that I work my relations. I need to ensure that I work on my emotions. If I need to cry, I cry out. If I need to take a walk and get back my sense of life, I do that. Because once we don't deal with mental health for men, then we're going to have a crash system. We're going to have this system of men crashing down. And once you have men crashing down, then that also will distort the social functioning of the system that we have. So to me, mental health is very important, and I pay attention to it. Sometimes it's just too much work that we find solace in work, and yet that's not how it's supposed to be. We are supposed to ensure that, yes, we do the work, but also take a break and also work on our mental health. Take time and do what we call self-care. I take my time every Sunday to just be by myself, steam out, and let the brain take a break. It's very important. Thank you.
Mental health refers to a person's emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and behave in daily life. Mental health also influences how we handle stress, relate to others, and make decisions. It is important throughout every stage of life, from childhood to adulthood. Maintaining a good mental health involves recognizing and expressing emotions healthily, building positive relationships, and seeking help when dealing with overwhelming feelings or stress.
Now, here's what I think. Mental health is generally the state of your mind, right? Now, and is measured generally by how people react to the different situations that life brings our way. Now, do I believe in depression? Yes, I do. But how I'm going to react to the situation that I face entirely is dependent upon me, for example. So if I face a depressing situation and I choose to think about it negatively by absorbing negative ideas, by trying to beat myself down, then generally I'm going to be beat, right? But if I take positive actions and reactions and I think about how to basically overcome my challenges, then I'm not allowing those negative thoughts to overtake my mind. And essentially, that's how I believe that gentlemen or we generally can end up beating this mental health thing. And I generally think that it's really overplayed, because when people talk about mental health and everything, I think we really over-glorify the fact that we don't have the power to generally fight against what we absorb from the society that generally leads to depression. And look, things that we face generally today are not new. The human race has faced even much more serious challenges with very less sophistication before, right? And now in the current world that we have those new technologies and new ways to overcome, I think we should do better, right? And that's why I generally think that we can and we should really at an individual level try to look at depression not necessarily as a disease, but as a way to overcome the different challenges that we do. If you want to surrender to your thoughts and start overplaying negative thoughts in your mind, then generally, of course, you end up in that kind of a situation. But if you're positive about your life, positive about your situation, and you generally, try to live in a manner that take actions that push to overcome your challenges, and I think, we can equip ourselves to overcome these negative thoughts. Well, that's my thinking.
From South Africa, and thank you so much for the topic, by the way. And to me, mental health means being able to do everything with the enthusiasm that would inspire the next person. You know, having grown in an environment where we encounter setbacks, you know, sometimes it's not easy for you to execute the energy that you need to put out in whatever that you want to accomplish. And it's kind of become a challenge for most men to be active when they are trying to accomplish something in their lives, because it's kind of difficult, man, in this world lately, you know, to be dealing with the stresses. But that's what it actually means to me, to be able to contribute in the society with the enthusiasm that will inspire the next person relentlessly. So, you know, when they see you putting out the work, you know, putting out the power, the energy into everything that you want to accomplish, even when things are not going well for you, being able to cope under stress, that would inspire somebody else. That's the mental health that we need to see every single day of our lives. Yeah.
The conversation about mental health is just beginning, but every story shared is a step towards healing. African people, especially African men, have voices that matter, and their strength lies not just in their resilience, but in their willingness to speak and connect. Despite all these challenges, progress is being made. Countries like Kenya, South Africa, and Ghana are integrating mental health into public health policies, and technology is opening new doors for teletherapy and online support. Mental health affects us all. Supporting our loved ones starts with listening, understanding, and breaking the silence. It's about creating safe spaces where vulnerability is met with compassion, and asking for help is seen as a sign of strength. We say thank you to Dr. Tumi for her expertise and all her insights on the topic, and to all the men that participated in this week's episode. Thank you for listening.